In the 21st century, the world began to experience unprecedented economic expansion and changes. It was as if the world had become smaller all of a sudden. The changing demographics in the United States developed and found new opportunities around the world, but also important challenges. So, why is leadership in general so important? Because an effective global leader successfully inspires others. Executives today must have the ability to translate from culture to culture, analyzing, adapting, and understanding the different ways people act or react around the world. So, what is the definition of leadership? Well, according to Mark Harmon, an actor you know well, it's people who lead whether or not they have a title, they strive to make things better. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who was a political and ideological leader in India in the 19th century, I suppose leadership at one time meant muscle, but today it means getting along with people. And then, in the words of the American poet Henry David Thoreau, to affect the quality of the day, that is the highest of arts. So, leading means that you have to be an example to others. Having said that, in today's environment, people may be said to resemble not the bricks of which a house is built, but the pieces of a picture puzzle, each differing in shape but matching the rest, and thus bringing out the picture. And this was stated by Felix Adler, a professor of political and social ethics, founder of the American Ethical Movement. Also, in the words of Richard Larson, Deputy Managing Director of Hispanic Business, we acknowledge that modern societies carry historical and divisive biases based on race, ethnicity, gender, age, disability, sexual orientation, and religion, and we seek to promote awareness and understanding. As you probably all know, there are different types of leadership, but today we will focus on something called global leadership. So, what is exactly global leadership? It is an invaluable tool for corporations today. It represents the ability to encourage employees, solve team problems, and prevent conflict within a team and with clients or partners of different cultures. It is the ability to use emotional intelligence to understand why people act and react the way they do, as we said before, according to their own culture. And they also help to provide the right incentives and solutions to problems. A global leader inspires change in a positive way. Global leaders in the 21st century can handle effectively different types of cultural aspects of business, such as power distance, the concept of personalism, time, international etiquette, social, business practices, the perception of figures of authority, religion, and much more in order to succeed as international negotiators. In your slide, you can see that global leadership includes displaying civic awareness towards other cultures, which basically means respecting other cultures, having the ability to bridge cultures, and conquering multicultural complexities, finding things in common between cultures, making the most out of cultural challenges, and successfully forming teams in spite of cultural differences. You are probably thinking, how does culture affect leadership? Why is it so important? Well, just simply look at ads and notice how they have changed. Culture shapes how we think about what is good leadership, and the definitions of an effective leader vary from one culture to another. That is why culture is so important, and that is why we are going to focus on global leadership today. Diversity in leadership means more tolerance. This means respecting cultural differences. We begin with stereotypes. We always have an idea of what people from a certain culture is going to be like. That creates prejudice, which translates into a certain attitude, and that can very well lead to discrimination. This is what you have to get rid of in order to be a successful global leader. So, who can be a global leader? Well, virtually anyone who understands and accepts that people from different cultures, religions, and ethnicities can effectively work together for the common good of their organization. Anyone who cares about finding creative solutions to local and global problems alike. Anyone who cares about what is happening in the world and who is willing to become well informed on international issues. This is very important, learning what's going around in the world. And finally, anyone capable of empathy and who can identify talent in spite of cultural differences. Here we have a few examples of global leaders through the ages. We have Steve Jobs of Apple Computer, we have Golda Meir, we have Simón Bolívar, we have Queen Elizabeth II, we have Angela Merkel, Prince Siddhartha, better known as Buddha, Margaret Thatcher, and Jacinda Ardern. And these are only a few of the examples of leaders who have become well known and followed by thousands around the world. Now, let's think, what makes a good leader? A good leader is someone who leads by example, plans ahead, confronts problems, not the people, uses empathy, expresses appreciation, knows how to recognize when he or she is wrong, and cares and is fair. It is also someone who shows respect for others, who is responsible, visible, trustworthy, who honors commitments, demonstrates loyalty, and is a law-abiding citizen. Good leaders should aim at influencing, guiding, motivating, inspiring, and convincing. When we think of leadership today, which is leadership in the 21st century, we have to realize that the perception of leadership has definitely changed. Today, culture definitely matters. Global leadership in this day and age includes many new aspects, such as understanding other cultures, not resenting differences, but actually learning from them. As American poet Maya Angelou stated, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Sir Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister during World War II, stated, "A joke is a very serious thing." Let's take a look at that. You would think that humor around the world is all the same, but it actually is not. Jokes across cultures have very important differences. First of all, humor is definitely a cultural issue. What is amusing to one culture may be offensive to another. Age, gender, race, and religion must be taken into account when you joke. Even countries that speak the same language can display a different sense of humor. And here we have a few examples. Britain versus the United States. American humor is more obvious and forward, whereas British humor tends to be darker, more sarcastic, often with a hidden meaning. Americans often finish a joke saying, "Only kidding." Even TV programs successful in both countries like The Office and Coupling have been rewritten to include cultural adaptation. Germans are not too fond of jokes. Mexicans love to laugh, especially at themselves. Their humor is aggressive and they tend to joke about religion, education, language, and history, but they do not welcome foreigners joking about the same topics. And in the case of Italians, they love to joke, but they do not welcome foreigners making sarcastic or ironic jokes about them. Another issue that must be taken into account are ethics in leadership. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act of 1977, created in the United States, what aims to protect your business and reputation, understand what the law and regulation requires of you, understand the risks posed by corrupt customers, and identifies the customers who are at higher risk. However, ethical issues across cultures may vary. Ethical and legal standards may change with the passage of time and depending on the culture. What is ethical, legal, and moral in one country could be illegal, unethical, and immoral in another. Social behavioral practices in one culture may be totally unacceptable in another. Some examples are interaction between single men and women, singles living together, bribery and corruption, social classes, gender, marital status, religious, age discrimination, and so forth. As you can see, the new global environment encompasses many changes and many challenges for today's leaders. In the United States, employees speak over 30 different languages, and some cultural differences may affect performance. So what are some of these differences? For example, in some cultures, people are accustomed and prefer to work face-to-face. This is based on the concept of personalism. There are other cultures where dealing with other countries has been done for ages, as in the case of Europe, due to its geographic proximity. Cultures have different motivations and priorities. So let's think about this. Do people actually work to live or live to work? Are they communicative or reserved? Ask yourself these questions about your foreign employees or colleagues. Do they run on polychronic or monochronic time? Is time plentiful or is time something that should be valued? Do they belong to a feminine or a masculine society? Is personal space important? Do they come from an individualistic or a collective society? Do they apply the concept of personalism in business? Do they have a sense of humor? Do they belong to a high or a low power distance society? Is their culture based on a high or low uncertainty avoidance index culture? Let's take a look at some of these differences and examples. Family-based cultures. Family-based cultures are places where they are the largest group in the world with 3.7 billion people, which is more than half the world population. These people are unscheduled, they're casual, festive. Social and family relations are top priorities. There is no generation gap. They're very lively, talkative, creative, and imaginative. They run on polychronic time, which means time is plentiful. Why rush? They are high context cultures and they work to live, not live to work. Who belongs to these family-based cultures? Well, Latin America, the Mediterranean countries like France, Italy, Greece, Africa, the Middle East, Asia, India, and Pakistan. Another group are the collectively based cultures who are courteous, long-term oriented, collectivists. They're very good listeners. They're highly respectful. They have great bargaining skills. They're excellent team players. They're highly structured thinkers, which means they prioritize relations, and they are extremely private. Who belongs to these collectively based cultures? Japan, China, Korea, and Southeast Asia. To continue with collectively based cultures, they show great respect for elders. They are highly hierarchical, which means they prioritize relations and figures of authority. They value obedience. They run on polychronic time, same as Group 1, Latin America, and so forth. They multitask. They are very good at nonverbal indirect communication, and they are extremely patient. The next group are information-based cultures, and these cultures include the United States, Western Europe, like Germany, also Canada and Australia. These cultures rely heavily on technology to establish relations, both at work and at home. They're very impatient and very fast-paced, so they are on monochronic time. They are self-sufficient, and they are a growing culture around the world. They represent the youngest group of all. So, what are the main challenges for today's global leaders? Problems that used to be out there are now in here. Think local is now second place to think global. Listening is more important than talking. Empathy is more important than ever. The stability of known has given place to the instability of the unknown. Learning is now as important as teaching. There is no universal agreement on what behaviors or practices are considered appropriate, legal, ethical, or moral across cultures, and this according to Henderson and Toffler. And no one is more right than other. We are just different. To continue with challenges for today's global leaders, let's face it, leadership in the global environment is complicated. It is not business as usual. So don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. Avoid stereotypes. Be enthusiastic. Be empathic. Put yourself in the other person's place. Dare to step out of your comfort zone. Who knows, you might find something interesting, something that you like. Learn something new about the other culture. And more than anything, keep an open mind. Earlier today, we spoke about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is extremely important today. So what exactly is emotional intelligence? It is the ability to recognize and understand one's own feelings and emotions, as well as those of others, and use that information to manage. And this is something I took from the Management Study Guide. The primary cause of derailment, both in executives and employees, are emotional issues. When you feel insecure, when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel threatened. Being aware of the strengths and weaknesses of employees allows leaders to place them in the right positions, thus increasing levels of satisfaction and productivity among the staff in general. Emotional intelligence helps successfully place workers in the most appropriate positions within the company, based not only on their IQ, but on their emotional competencies, such as initiative, self-awareness, self-confidence, social awareness, leadership skills, ability to accept and handle change, how well they do in a team, and interpersonal skills. When we discuss the levels of emotional intelligence in global leadership, there are several levels that you need to consider, and you can test yourself by asking yourself the following questions. In general, are you aware of your feelings and of why do you feel that way? Are you aware of your limitations as well as of your personal strengths as a leader? Can you manage your negative emotions effectively? Anger, disappointment? Do you adapt well to changing environments, working with others from other cultures? Can you keep focused on your main goals with ease? Can you sense the feelings of others when you interact with other people? Once again, taking into account their culture. Can you put yourself in someone else's shoes, meaning you empathize well with others? Are you good at persuading or influencing others? Are you good at settling conflicts? In conclusion, leadership in the global environment requires going above and beyond your comfort zone. It requires a new set of social and business skills, open-mindedness, and a cultural understanding of the world we live in today. It means accepting and understanding people from other ethnicities, genders, religions, and backgrounds, and learning to interact with them. So be aware of cultural differences. Never stop learning about other cultures. See these differences not as challenges, but as opportunities for you to grow, not only as a leader within your company, but also as an individual. Successful global leaders are able to seamlessly infuse differing cultures, languages, and personalities to form one strong and cohesive team. When an international company has a unified team, they are better able to quickly and effectively expand. Lead the world from the palm of your hand. You can do it. My name is Monica Stevens. I'm an intercultural trainer and consultant, and I would like to thank you very much for your attention to this global leadership presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Bye.